Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be talking about progesterone. Why do women have low progesterone and the symptoms that it can cause? Breast tenderness, cramping, mood issues, inability to sleep, relaxation problems, anxiety, and then of course a lot of the PMS symptoms can be exacerbated by that. Breast tenderness, cramping, lower back pain, irritability. We're going to dive into that topic today. Before we do, please smash the like button. Love to see your comments down below. And we're going to go into the root cause physiology of what's happening. All right, guys. So nice chatting with you guys here today. I'm excited to dive in. So when we talk about female hormone physiology, we have a complete month-long cycle right here. The first half of the month is called the follicular phase. So think of F as in follicular, F as in first half. So first half of the cycle is the follicular. This is where estrogen predominates, typically spikes up around day 10 or so. And then the middle part of the cycle, 12 through 14, 13 to 15 is ovulation. So where estrogen peaks and progesterone starts to come up right behind it, that's where that X is. So we have estrogen here, progesterone comes behind it. This X right here, that is ovulation. That's the 2 to 3 day window where you could actually get pregnant, right? Only a 2 to 3 day window. And then after that, progesterone peaks around day 15. I'm sorry, it comes up 15, it peaks at around day 20 or so, and then starts to come down. So we have our follicular, ovulation, and then luteal. L for luteal, L for last. F for follicular, F for first. So just these are how I kind of remember things, and so just kind of being transparent in how I think about it. So follicular, ovulation, luteal. Follicular estrogen, ovulation is going to be the crescendo where estrogen peaks and progesterone comes up, and then that luteal phase is where progesterone really peaks up. On a typical blood test, 15 to 20 or so. I think it's PG per ml, but don't quote me on that. 15 to 20 or so on a blood test, or if we're dealing with like a Dutch test, we're looking at 15 to 20 is kind of that optimal. Or if we're on like a salivary test, we're looking at like a 200-ish on the progesterone is kind of where we want to be on average. And so typically we want that progesterone should be about 20 to 25 times more throughout the month than progesterone on average. That should be kind of where you're sitting. That should be the big difference. Now, progesterone can pinch hit for cortisol. So when you're chronically stressed and chronically inflamed, progesterone can go downstream and deal with cortisol. And so the first thing we look at when we try to balance anyone's hormones, we try to say, where is the inflammation? Where's the stress coming from? Because I can give you progesterone, but if you have chronic inflammation from gluten or from SIBO or this candida issue or your sleep's crummy, and that's creating inflammation. Well, let's say we just have dysglycemia. Dysglycemia is one of the biggest causes of female hormone issues. This bouncing around of cortisol creates lots of, the bouncing around of blood sugar can create lots of cortisol bouncing around, adrenaline bouncing around. It can also then cause your progesterone to go down and go to cortisol to manage those ebbs and flows. And plus, you're getting lots of surges of insulin. Now, that's a big deal because the leading cause of infertility in females is PCOS. The number one driver of PCOS, that's polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's many ovarian cysts. The number one cause of that is lots of insulin being secreted, which then causes an upregulation of enzymes, specifically a 1720 lyase and those derivatives that converts E to T. That's why the major drug that's used for women to treat PCOS is what? It's metformin or glucophage, right? These are insulin sensitizing agents. Problem with metformin, though, it can also cause some depletion in B vitamins. And so that can be a problem. It can also create some B vitamin issues. So if you're on the pill as well, that also creates B vitamin problems. And then you can really be flogging your mitochondria if you're not getting to the bottom of the root of why this issue is happening. So we want to look at cortisol. We want to see where the cortisol is at because that tells us our stress handling capacity, our ability to regulate inflammation, plus our cortisol rhythm. That tends to have a big impact on our sleep rhythm and mood rhythm. All right, so if we have a reverse cortisol pattern where we're lower in the morning or higher at night or flatter, this can impact mood, this can impact energy. Plus cortisol going down at night is really important because there's an inverse relationship between cortisol going down and melatonin, our sleep hormone, going up. So we want to make sure that cortisol is dropping and coming down nicely. And plus, we don't want to be making progesterone and turning it into cortisol because progesterone opens the GABA chloride channels in the brain. And so what that means, that floods GABA in, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that calms down the brain. It takes glutamate, upregulates the GAD64 enzyme, and that converts glutamate into GABA. So glutamate's what you get when you're OCD, when you're thinking, when you're ruminating, lots of glutamate. And so we have to convert that glutamate downstream to GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter that tells your brain to relax. And so that's where things like theanine and GABA and magnesium, and then of course B6 is really important too, for all that to work upstream. Plus, if you have a lot of gut issues, progesterone is really important. It's very much antihistamine, right? So it helps with histamine, helps with reducing histamine. So if we have issues with histamine, and it could be because we have mold in our home, because we're eating a lot of, foods that are high in histamine. It could be the big issue outside of mold in the home is going to be you have a lot of dysbiotic bacteria in the gut that are making histamine, and that's filling up your histamine bucket. And then when you add in more inflammation in the environment or in your life, that puts you over the top. And then if your progesterone's low as well, now your ability to deal with that histamine or inflammation, if you will, is much lower. So you really want to look at things holistically. So progesterone, very important. Can you give it? Yeah, you can, but you want to look at the reason why it's needed, because you want to plug in that gap, because it can be putting like gasoline in the fire if you just give it without getting to the root, number one. We want to also make sure any stress upstream from the pituitary hypothalamus, that luteinizing hormone is the feedback loop for your body to make progesterone. So we want to make sure we have good feedback. So using certain herbs and adaptogens like chaste tree or maca, or shepherd's purse or white peony, there's different herbs that can help kind of reset that rhythm, can be very helpful, but you have to fix the underlying stress and inflammation first. And if we give progesterone, I like to not give creams, because it can supersaturate the subcu tissue, and then it can spill over at the end of your cycle into the next cycle. Instead of turning that progesterone off, it can spill into the next half of the cycle, and that can throw off rhythm and timing. Maybe okay if you're menopausal, because that cycle is gone, but if you're cycling, we really want to hit the pause button on that progesterone and not have it be super saturating your subcu tissue underneath. And so if we do it, I like to do liquid drops. So in my line, we will do Cycle Balance, which is a high quality progesterone drop. We'll do it either topically on certain areas of the skin, or we'll do it sublingually as an option. We don't want to do the creams though. It can be supported and put into the system lymphatically. We also want to look at supporting the upstream HP axis, HPAG gonadal axis, utilizing herbs to support LH. We may even want to do glandulars. Like sometimes doing things like ovine tissue, uterine tissue, some of these glandulars have nutrients that these sex hormones need too. And so outside of just making sure we have good cholesterol, healthy animal protein, healthy animal fats, keeping away a lot of the processed refined vegetable oils, making sure those building blocks are there, because the mother of all hormones is pregnenolone, and then one step above pregnenolone is cholesterol. And so vegans and vegetarians are going to be in the worst boat, because if you don't eat the raw material to make your hormones, you're going to have a supply deficit. I know this kind of runs counterintuitive to lots of people's thinking, but it's really important. You need to eat the raw material that your hormones need. And so most of your hormones are going to be steroid-based, which means they have a cholesterol backbone, and a few will be peptide-based, which means amino acid, and that's going to be your insulin and growth hormone. So really important. So when you have low progesterone, you're going to have PMS. You can also have infertility, because progesterone is the major hormone. That's the sticky glue for that egg to implant to the uterine lining. Estrogen tells your cells to grow. Progesterone tells your cells to grow up, to mature. And so we need both there at the same time. If we're just estrogen dominant, that's how you grow fibroids and endometriosis. We need progesterone to balance that out. Progesterone's anti-cancer. It also helps relax the body, relax the brain, and it helps have a good, healthy period so you're not bleeding too long. And it also helps you relax and helps with the mood issues that tend to be driven from PMS. All right, guys, if you want to dive in deeper and you want to look at your hormones, you have chronic stuff that you want to look at and get to the root cause, there'll be a link down below where you can reach out to my staff and team. We see patients worldwide on this, and we test the hormones, and we look at the thyroid, we look at the adrenals, we look at DHEA, we look at everything. We don't just assume it's just progesterone, because sometimes these symptoms can overlap. And so we always want to be humble and get a good picture into everything at the same time. So link down below, and if you enjoyed, put a comment there. Take care.